Okay.
Hello, my name is Amanpreet Chhina. I'm a professor of international business here at Humber College. I would like to present my paper based on the theme of the conference, which is Inclusive Growth and Profits with Purpose. The title of my paper is A Business Model that I would like to develop to reach bottom of the pyramid in developing countries. It's a special case study for India based on the concept of thrift stores. Now, you probably heard this many times: the rich are getting richer and the poor are getting poorer. According to the World Economic Forum, about 50% of the world's wealth is owned by just 1% of the population. Another study says that 7 out of 10 people live in countries where economic inequality has increased in the past 10 years. So it becomes imperative that we think about financial sustainability of these people who I would call are the underprivileged. We need to find ways and means to cater to these people. The corporate world is grappling with the concepts of social responsibility, inclusive growth, but I believe in these times NGOs and entrepreneurs can play a vital role in distributing the pre-owned merchandise to the community. So this brings us to this concept that I would like to discuss today, thrift stores, which is a formula that can help us to reach the underprivileged, the have-nots, and provide them a way to reach the recirculation of wealth and of the merchandise. So let's begin this presentation. I would like to begin with the definition of thrift stores. According to Urban Dictionary, a thrift store is a place where goods can be donated to be refurbished and sold that usually benefits a non-profit organization, saves landfill space, and overall benefits the community. So this is a concept where the community that has stuff that they do not need is able to donate it, and people who would like to buy the same stuff at very affordable prices are able to get access to that merchandise. So thrift stores, some of them have actually become branded names. You've probably heard about Oxfam in United Kingdom, heard the name of Salvation Army in United States and Canada. Goodwill Industries is another one. Savers Inc. operates in Australia as well. So what kind of goods and merchandise do these stores sell? They sell used clothing, as you can see in the picture here. There are household goods, there are books, shoes, furniture. Looks in a pretty good condition to me. Right on the top of the slide, you see an example of a thrift store. That's the outside of the store by the Salvation Army. So these are just a few examples. Now, who do they sell to? Primarily, the customers for thrift stores are the middle-class bargain hunters, the underprivileged poor, students who are probably on the tight budget, and environmental enthusiasts who would like to think about the environment before they make their purchases. Now let's move on to the objective of this paper. But before we go there, I would like to give you a little bit of history and growth of thrift stores. Now, it's not a very new phenomenon. It actually started way back in the 19th century when the first shop was set up by the Wolverhampton Society for the Blind, where they were selling goods made by the blind to people who needed them in order to serve the underprivileged. Goodwill Industries is one of the very popular, very known name in the thrift store industries. It was set up in the year 1902, catering to the poor and disabled with used merchandise that was collected. Up until the end of 19th century, most of the Europe actually was buying goods from the thrift stores, mainly the second-hand clothing. Now, after the Industrial Revolution, textile industry was able to sell clothes at very reasonable prices, and hence the concept of thrift stores actually started dipping. But 2000s, all this economic uncertainty and economic disparity in the world has led to a resurgence of thrift stores. And in UK, USA, and Australia, thrift store industry is actually growing at 7% per annum. Let me show you the number of thrift stores that are operating right now in 4 of these developed countries. Now, according to the various data sources that I have used to collect this data, currently USA has about 25,000 thrift stores operating there. UK has about 8,000. Australia has about 6,500, and Canada has about 3,000 thrift stores that are operating in this country. So the growth is, as I said, is about 7 to 10%, which is an evidence to the fact that a lot of people are going and making in their purchases. Another source of data says that around 16 to 18% of people living in the United States at some point in their life buy their goods and clothing and merchandise from these thrift stores. Let's move on to the objective of this paper. I would like to develop a business model to set up the concept of thrift stores for a developing country such as India. My business model will be very specific to the economic needs and social needs of people living in this country. But before we get there, there is an important question that needs to be answered. And that question is, what is the conventional business model of a thrift store in countries such as United States, UK, and Canada? So let me show you this conventional business model. It is actually based on the Savers thrift store business model. As you can see here, it is based on the donations by the local residents. Local residents can donate their items either in the bins that are provided closer to the malls, or they can drop off their items at the location of the thrift stores. The non-profit organizations, such as one of them is called the Diabetic Association, they go around with their trucks collecting donations as well, and all these donations go to these thrift stores where they are sorted and they are price tagged according to the quality of the items. There are 2 segments that need to be catered. The number one, of course, is the customers, people who come in looking for these affordable items. They like to purchase what they see at the price that they are able to see. But the other one is donors, who are focused on to be able to donate the items that they do not need, or they are just lying in their house unused. These unsold items that may be left after people have bought it sometimes can be huge in quantity. They are recycled or they are sent to the developing countries. Actually, second-hand clothing has become a major trade from these developed countries being sent to the developing countries. It is to the amount of $4 billion right now in the world. So what happens as a result? People who were not able to buy new are able to get merchandise that is as good or close to new at a very affordable price. They are able to find employment in these stores. The goods that do not get sold are sent to developing countries that are actually having people living in abject poverty that get access to these products at very affordable prices. So, saves the planet, creates employment, provides accessibility to goods and merchandise for people who otherwise would not have been able to purchase. Now, the bigger question here is, has this market never existed in India? The market of recycling, the market of buying reused goods? Let's have a look. I would like you to take your attention to this very important question. Is there an existing resale market in India? I think those of you who have lived your life in India are probably aware of the traditional Bartan Walis in India. There are a couple of pictures that I would like you to take your attention to. These were usually women and men from the state of Gujarat in India who went house to house, bartering the utensils that they had for used, worn out, old clothing, basically focusing on the middle-class women in India. It was a negotiated process where the women would give their old clothing for the utensils. This concept was very popular up until a few years ago, except it has been dipping in its popularity due to many reasons, such as, first of all, people have started to live in gated communities where they do not allow these women to come. Secondly, their choice has become different. They're no longer interested in the kind of utensils that are being sold. They would rather buy glass or ceramic. And thirdly, there is now places such as huge malls that have come up that have a huge range of products that are available. So this remains as a very, very traditional model. Is there another area or another focus area? Yes, there is. The new online stores. Traditionally speaking, recycling of products in India actually started with the automobile industry, the burgeoning of automobile industry up until the year 2006, 2007. I would say people would buy their scooters, motorcycles, cars from other consumers as second-hand products. But then the branded dealerships such as Ford, Suzuki, Maruti Suzuki, such as Mitsubishi, Honda, they all now have their used car dealerships where people go to purchase used automobiles from a more organized sector. Apart from that, consumers are actually going online to various websites. You probably have heard the name of OLX, YNew, or Quicker, where people can buy merchandise such as appliances, microwaves, refrigerators. They can purchase cars, they can purchase electronics such as computers and cameras and phones, and of course books and other household stuff. That is used and it is being sold there. So these are the newer ways to buy. Now the question is that who is selling and who is buying? It is interesting to find that these people who are selling these products are middle-class people making an average of about 2 lakh rupees per annum. Let me show you a graph that will bring things into perspective. So I'm talking about 3% of Indian population who is having online websites as a source to purchase used merchandise. They sell and they buy. Who are the people who do not have access or the money to purchase used stuff at affordable prices? These are the poor people, which form 20% of Indian population. They are making close to only 30,000 rupees per annum. 77% of Indian population is the low-income population. They are making anywhere in between 30,000 rupees to a lakh and a half rupees per annum. Now, half of these people can actually be combined with the poor people category, and they have no access to the resources that we were talking about earlier. So what about them? This is where thrift stores, the concept comes in. It will take the wealth from the middle class, since middle class, ironically, are also the biggest hoarders of the products that they do not intend to use or have not used in the past. So from the haves to the have-nots, and that's where the concept of thrift stores comes in. So this is the irony that I'm talking about. Middle class is holding about 10 billion worth of unwanted used goods, according to an OLX survey across 16 cities in urban India. 1/5 of the goods stocked in urban Indian homes have ceased to be relevant to them. So where should they go? They should probably go to the market. And what is that market? That market has yet to be developed. This is the market that I'm talking about. It is the market of thrift stores. So let me take you to the model and very briefly explain to you what this model is all about. We're talking about, on the far end there, the customer segments, the lower middle class population or the poor population. Who do we intend to use as the key partners are right here. The first ones, of course, are the donors, people who are hoarding merchandise or unused goods in their houses. And there are other partners such as local municipalities whose aim is to develop the urban areas. We're talking about NGOs. There are about 31 lakh NGOs operating in India. There will be another way for them to distribute wealth. We're talking about the state government who actually help in municipalities run and do their job. Media plays a very, very important role, which is to spread the message as well as develop a culture of giving as opposed to simply getting to the middle class. The main value proposition for this kind of concept is access to quality used clothing and household stuff. It's an opportunity to give. It's based on philanthropy and recycling, which has socio-economic and environmental benefits as well. The cost structure of this model that I have proposed is minimal cost. There is one-time setup cost based on what they need, which is basically a real estate space. Store equipment, which is again one-time expense, and transportation means to do the logistics about procuring unused items from the donors and bringing them in. Fixed costs, as I said, include the rent or lease payment of the real estate space, utilities, salaries, and security. The variable cost is more about the wages and transportation. The basic revenue stream is sale of clothing and household items. The channels that will be used are the retail stores. How will the customer relationships be developed will be based on in-store personal interactions, phones, or websites. The key activities have been explained earlier in the model, the traditional model, which is again based on donations from the donors. The donations come in, they are sorted, they are price tagged, they are displayed. People who would like to buy these affordable items, mostly from the poor and low income category population, they come in, they find an item of their choice at a very, very affordable price, and they are able to purchase it. Whatever is left over can be redistributed among people who were not able to come in, or it can be sent for recycling to various textile mills that are able to convert it into yarn and make them into blankets, rags, and other kind of products. So this is the model that NGOs and entrepreneurs can use to use the concept of thrift stores and be able to redistribute the used merchandise back to the community. The last question that remains is, are there any impediments to the success of this model? I believe, yes, there are. The first one, of course, is, will the middle class donate? It's a very big question. Traditionally, the culture in India is about, I will keep it for later. Perhaps I will need it. Perhaps I will use it. It's the concept of hoarding. But middle class in India has become more educated, has become more aware, has become more socially active. And perhaps this is the time, thanks to the political ideology as well, we would like to develop the nation. This is a good time to reach out to people who are socially conscious about developing the country, and they can perhaps be trendsetters to keep this concept going. The second question is, will the donated items be freely and fairly traded? There is a big textile recycling market in India that procures damaged clothing from the rest of the world, mutilates it, recycles it, makes it into yarn, makes it into blankets, and exports it. They need a lot of used clothing as well. So it's possible that there emerges a market where this used clothing, as opposed to going to the underprivileged, is going actually to these recycling mills, basically based in the state of Haryana, Panipat. Is there a way to avoid it? I believe yes. If we have unsold extra inventory left after we have sold what we could, we can probably resell it to these recycling mills in Panipat, in Haryana, so it'll be a legal way to do it. Lastly, protests from indigenous textile industry. Why would they want people to buy used when they have new garments, new textiles to sell? Well, textile industry in India represents 5% of the total GDP contribution. It's probably one of the biggest employer in India as well. But in spite of their being there, India still has 30 to 50% of their population living in near poverty or lower income groups. So have they done anything so far to be able to alleviate poverty? Perhaps not, and hence it becomes imperative that thrift stores start working in this country to bring out a new model. So that brings me to the end of the presentation. Summing it all up, thrift stores around the world have been touted as a model that can not only provide market-driven economic sustainability for the underprivileged, it is also a model that can bring about environmental benefits. So why not give it a try? Why not use it as a tool to fight poverty with dignity? And thank you all for listening to my presentation. Unfortunately, I am not able to be there to hear your comments and answer your questions, but I can be reached at my email, amanpreet.chhina@hamburg.ca, and I'm sure you're having a great time at IMRA presentation. I wish you all success. Merry Christmas to everyone. A very, very happy New Year. Bye-bye. Ciao from Canada.